So, one of the things that came from my conversation with No Justice was the idea that she kept on saying you cannot work with Labour, that it is absolutely impossible to work with Labour, either from the inside or the outside, and that doing so is a fruitless endeavour that is just worthless, and instead you should work for another party because giving your vote to another party who won't gain power, who will only probably have one MP, and it is a push that they might have that one MP to begin with. Um, that's somehow better? Question mark. But we have this today coming from the Eye, who did a interview with the leader of the TUC, a very big union here in the UK, who said, "We are going to work with Labour. We know that they're going to enter Parliament. They look like they are sort of going to be the next, government in power. We're going to work with them. We're going to improve our relations with them because guess what? Shouting at a party all the time does not necessarily work. You've got to engage with them at some point in a constructive conversation." So this is what the TUC now look like they are doing, that they are improving relations with Starmer, with the team, to try and work with them to say, hey, guess what? We want a wealth tax because we think that is one of the best ideas that we can to try and solve this debt time bomb for households that is gradually ever ticking on. Now, I've talked before about the wealth tax. I think there are better ways to tax the wealthy than just a wealth tax. Although I am not against the idea of a wealth tax, I am skeptical, shall we say, of the idea of how well it will work. It will work. You will get money, but after a while, I think that wealth tax will have ever decreasing returns because what will happen is that the wealthy will do what they always do, find tax loopholes, find other ways that they can avoid paying that tax. That is what the wealthy always do. So while initially it might work, over time, a wealth tax might not prove to be the most effective means of taxing the wealthy. That's where I always say where I'm sort of skeptical about an idea of a wealth tax. There are better ideas. Taxing dividends, for example, that I think would be a better idea. Increasing the tax on that, looking at maybe finding ways to tax property more effectively. Is there a way that if people have like multiple properties that they gain, passive income from, is there a way to tax that more effectively so that maybe we can get more of those properties from those wealthy people back into sort of, the housing flow rather than it just being a permanent place that is, well, just extracted from and actually gets proper use out of, as someone's home rather than a temporary place for someone to live. But yeah, you're getting into sort of ideas about renting and reforming that, and of course, etc., etc. But that's probably a video for another time, and we've talked about that before. But so we're going to have a look at this interview because I think it is quite good. I think the TUC definitely are on the right path, and it shows that yes, you can work with Labour, because if they're going to be the next government in power, these are the types of things that we have to do if we want to affect change. That is how you affect change. You've got to fight for it. If not, then, at the end of the day, it's all talk and no real actual action. But here we go. So, before we do get onto this, please remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, there is the link down below to the Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, there is the YouTube thank you button. And of course, there is the Pony Club as well. So, let's crack on into this. So, TUC chief promises fight with Starmer over tax amid household debt time bomb warning. So, employers are already trying to improve their relations with unions in anticipation of an upcoming Labour government, according to the General Secretary of the TUC. I detect a change of mood. I talk to employers, and the mood is that there is a political change coming, and that is going to involve stronger union voices. This is what, again, I find this kind of funny. A lot of people said, oh, Starmer's not going to enforce all this stuff on unions. That's never going to happen. And yet you have the leader of the TUC who is talking to employers, have employers trying to improve their relations with unions because they can see a change of mood and they know that unions are about to get a lot more power than they used to have under this new incoming Labour government. That's very promising. I'm not going to lie, that is very promising. He said that employers are absolutely changing their stances on issues like the new anti-strike legislation that Keir Starmer has promised to repeal within the first 100 days at number 10, saying that we've had all the rail employees, the NHS employers, both say that legislation which allows employers to issue work notices forcing striking employees to return to the work or be sacked could prolong and worsen disputes. I think that this is a very brave employer that issues a work notice, knowing that a Labour government is coming in and it will repeal that legislation. The Keir promised to introduce the so-called New Deal for workers immediately after the election victory and will be a major win for the unions. Again, it will be. The New Deal for New Workers is very good, and I'm really glad that that's going to sort of come in. I think it is going to be, and I think it should be, a very big key focus point of the next general election. Get Angela Rayner out there, get her leading on this. This is her thing. This is her area of expertise. This is what she can do. And I think, as I've said before, she's very good. Labour need to make more use of her, and I hope they really do during the general election. So the Labour leader has, of course, rebuffed their demands to try and shift the tax burden from workers to assets. However, ruling out new wealth taxes. And I think this whole idea, eventually, that's going to change. This idea that we cannot tax assets is going to be the ultimate big change, I think, that will come in, because all the wealth in the UK, we are a very, very asset wealthy country, and we've got to start taxing the assets. If we don't, we're going to reach a problem where, you know, you've got all this money coming in and it's not enough anymore. You need to start taxing the assets as well. That's where we're going to, I think, see stuff coming through. Now, I think that will eventually happen. I really do think that will eventually happen. I think they will have to sort of start looking at that. The idea that they can't look at this, I think they will. But a taste in the battle to come for Keir if he does not reach number 10. The TUC General Secretary said that he would not take no for an answer as unions press for major changes for tax to fund public services, saying that we are committed to thinking of ways to shift the tax burden from workers onto the wealth. We've got a tax system that hasn't kept pace with the changing income equality in this country, said Mr. Nowak. Again, I agree. I agree. It really hasn't kept pace. Like I say, especially over the past 10 years, we've had the Tories where we have had this change. They've had no inclination at all to change this. And what have we seen? Public services getting worse. And that's how it needs to be solved. Because ultimately what happened, if Labour were to make these changes, if they were to come out and say, we're going to make these changes, then instantly you are giving a huge opening to the Tories, because the Tories have always traditionally, if Labour had even touched this, they have gone out on a massive full-scale campaign and exploited this many, many a time. So when they do this, they have to come out and say this, look, we are going to be shifting the burden of tax onto the wealthy, and this is going to help pay for a whole new series of not just really current series of public services, but be able to expand public services. And that's how it has to be sold. And even when the Tories will start attacking it, because they will start attacking it, it has to be said, well, look, if we do this, we are going to be able to fund all these new frontline public services from the NHS, legal aid. We're going to be able to build new houses, build all kinds of new stuff with this type of stuff. If not, how else do you want us to sort of do this? Or Or what do you want to do? Just keep on going because we can clearly see the current system isn't working. You know? So it is does something that does need to happen, something that does need to sort of do. So again, I'm glad that the TUC are pushing for this because this is the type of thing you want unions to do. You want them to keep on sort of, keep on saying to Labour, hey, this is the type of thing you need to be looking at. This is what you need to do. Anyway, according to research by the University of Greenwich, cited by the Labour MP Rachel McKensell, in a Commons debate back in November, a wealth tax could raise over £70 billion. One option of a wealth tax could be a one-off tax based on an individual's assets valued at a specific time. Again, entirely doable. I think that would be good to do. Looking at how to do that, like I say, the idea of a wealth tax, there are numerous ways you can tax wealth. Numerous ways. So it's looking at what's the best way to do it and where do we do it? What do we exactly what do we exactly tax? Are we going to have a wealth tax? Again, what do you mean when you're taxing wealth? Something, even again, I include myself on this. When we talk about a wealth tax, we need to I think we on the left need to start saying specifically what exactly is we are going to tax. So taxing assets, so taxing these sort of physical things that are, again, hard to define. How do we do that? And again, that's where you then go, this is where the tax experts need to step in. Richard Murphy from the Sheffield Hallam University has an entire blog where he talks about nothing but tax all the time. He's very good. Go read up on his summer stuff because he's talked about a wealth tax before. Right. So yes, another report by the London School of Economics, commissioned by the Wealth Tax Commission back in 2020, suggested that a one-off tax payable on all individual wealth above £500,000 and charged at least 1% a year for the next 5 years could raise over 260 billion. At a threshold of 2 million, it would raise 80 billion. So as you can see, there are ways that we can raise a lot of money from this wealth tax, and that money can go to do a lot of good. A lot of good. So while the TUC, which brings together over 48 different unions with a total membership of over 5.5 million, it didn't plan to, quote, campaign hard on the issue during the election, saying that it wanted a national conversation on tax and there needed to be more cash to fund investment in public services was urgent. Again, that's fine. I think that's a good take on it. And I think even after, yeah, they they are going to sort of keep on pushing for sort of Labour to do that. And hey, what about this? What about this? That's how, again, a union here is engaging with Labour, and I think they will be eventually just be listened to, because when you've got Keir Starmer being said, hey, you can raise 260 billion pounds from doing it this way. Think of all the good you can do with that tax money. And you don't start shouting at Starmer saying he's a betrayer or excellent, because that gets you nowhere. If you approach Labour and say, hey, Keir, you could raise over 260 billion pounds with a wealth tax, which could allow you to build the new whole wave of brand new council house projects throughout the country, or build these brand new towns that you want to build, or do all kinds of stuff you could do with social services that would improve people's lives exponentially. All of a sudden, you are probably going to get engagement from Labour. Again, just because you are shouting, do not expect to be listened to. Just sometimes there comes a point where and I will agree, you do need to shout sometimes, but sometimes you do need to learn to speak softly, especially when all of a sudden that shouting has got you attention and you're brought into the office. Okay, well, tell us what your idea is. So, again, they're getting it right here on that. So, Mr. Nowak said that he had agreed to speak to Keir and Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, every 6 to 8 weeks as he sought the, quote, right relationship. Again, that's perfectly fine. I think that is the exact right thing and the tactic for them to do. Although Reeves has ruled out new wealth taxes, Mr. Moak made clear it wasn't a subject he had regarded as closed. I'm a trade unionist. I looked to the answer the first time anyone who said, no, I wouldn't last long in that job. Or, of course, it's going to be part of this debate and the conversation when Labour wins the next election. The TUC boss also said that he wants an incoming Labour government to overhaul the way that public sector pay is set by ensuring that the pay review bodies are properly independent and can take into account retirement needs in recommended pay levels. Again, okay, that's fine. Again, TUC, that's fine. I've got no problem with that. Mr. Nowak, who did take over the top job last year, admits that he was, quote, a little disappointed in the recent trend of increasing union membership had stalled, with numbers actually dipping despite some high-profile victories, saying that it's a mixed picture. I think people will be joining unions as a result of all that increased activity and people taking strike action. And the unions have been in the news in a way that they've never been before. On the other side, we've got real competing cost of living pressures and so forth for a lot of our members, and that 10 to 20 pounds a week of union sub is now a big financial commitment. I do take heart from what is happening with a lot of Amazon, for instance, the campaign that the GBM have been waging for union recognition, starting up with 30 or 40 people on one site. There is now more than 1,000 members. I don't think it's a campaign that is going to win in a few weeks or months, but I guarantee over the next few years, the GMB will get recognition and in Amazon. Again, good. That's how movements, that's how they start. These things do take time. Sometimes they can start small and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you've got to keep on fighting. Change does not happen instantly overnight. And even if we get a Labour government in, change is not necessarily going to instantly happen overnight. Yes, there are going to be some things that Keir Starmer can go in and do very, very quickly, but sometimes that change isn't necessarily going to reach the ground, maybe for another, maybe 6 to 12 months, even after maybe he does some of that stuff, or he passes a law, et cetera, et cetera. It will take time sometimes for these changes to sort of filter through. So the other thing he was talking about was unsecured debt, such as credit card bills and bank loans, will balloon by an average of over £1,400 per household next year as families struggle to make ends meet. And today, the TUC is now warned. The forecast is based on the Office for Budget Responsibility and Protections for Unsecured Household Liabilities. The independent budgeting watchdog has also said that the period between 2021 and 2024 will see the biggest fall in living standards since records began in 1955. Mr. Noak said that TUC's analysis of the OBR data revealed that families were facing a debt time bomb, as credit card bills, loans, and hire purchase agreements built up while wages stalled. The TUC claims that now, over the course of the next parliament, that unsecured debt is set to rocket by over £6,000 on average per family. Again, something that desperately does need to be really addressed on that. The union bodies said that the unsecured debt on the UK households is now on course to reach a record level of £17,000 by 2026, and according to the previous high estimate of £16,800 set in 2007, and on top of that £19,000 set in by 2028. In a New Year's message, Mr. Noak called for an early general election, saying that every month the Tory stays in office, more families will be pushed into debt. He will say that if nothing doesn't change, real wages will not recover to the 2008 levels until 2028. These 13 years of economic stagnation have left a lot of working people brutally exposed to the cost of living crisis, and we cannot afford another Tory government for one day longer. Yep. Again, I agree that there's nothing wrong with that. Type of thing that we keep on saying all the time. So we will get there. Change isn't going to necessarily come, straight away. It does take time to affect change. But I do believe there is a lot of things to be celebrating. I mean, the fact that, as he said, yeah, I'm the leader of the unions, and now, like the TUC, one of Britain's biggest unions, we're getting employers warm up to us because they know that all of a sudden unions are about to get a lot more power under this Labour government. That's going to be a good change. That's going to be a very good change for a lot of people in working conditions. So I'm happy about that. I am really happy that has, because that is good progress. That is, people engaging with Labour to affect change. That's good. I found that a lot of good progress from that. I think there will be a lot of good progress to make for that. And again, as we've said for a wealth tax, I think Starmer's going to look at the reality of that. I can get £260 billion from doing that type of wealth tax, or 70 or 80 from that. I think we might see a wealth tax. I am hopeful. I won't be upset if we don't see one, but if we do get one, excellent. And I think, as we've said before, if it's done in the right way, if it's done so that, maybe, as we said, in the first year, people just, after that first year, the wealthy just find ways to, squirrel away more of their money using sort of, as the wealthy do to keep them paying less tax, then you would see probably a less return on income. But if you do it properly, if you look for ways to do it right and make sure that that is collected like 1% over, X amount of total wealth that people have, yeah, I think that's entirely doable. I think it really is. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, of course, what happens. But bear in mind, there will be a general election this year. By all metrics, by everything we can see, it does feel like there is a general election round the corner. So in the next 6 months, we could see a general election. If not, we don't want to be waiting till this time next year, and we're like, right, we've literally got 25 days for them to announce a general election. So, so we'll see, and we'll see what happens. But another thing Keir Starmer should bring back, Fixed Term Parliament Act, absolutely should bring that back. But as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.